portion of our program that we've cherished for quite a while. As committee members, we've cherished this part of our program, inducting members into our Hall of Fame. Our first inductee is David Bowden, and he's going to be introduced by one of his proteges, you could say, Michael Lavelle. Michael, where are you? There he is. And Michael is going to tell you a bit about himself, and then he'll introduce David as well. Michael.
Thank you. I've had a few honors in my life, but today is my greatest honor. And that is to introduce who I think is the greatest coach of all time, David Bowden. I had the honor of being coached by David Bowden from 83 to 87 at Washington High School in Lauderdale Lakes, Florida. He coached me to 5 state championships, but today is definitely about Coach Bowden. One thing about Coach is that not only was he a great coach, but he lived everything that he said. If he asked you to drive through the line, he drove through the line. You saw him running and competing. But I want to say some things about Coach. He's a guy who gives everything to everything. He didn't start out, if you know him, he had success as a distance runner after the age of 40, along with being one of the top coaches in the state. He coached BA to 3 track and field state championships, 3 in cross country, and a lot of other close calls. Coach Bowden, before he came to South Florida to coach, was in St. Louis. And the story, as I've heard it, is that one day he decided that he was going to get fit. And it was in the middle of winter, and there were a whole bunch of other coaches saying, man, if we can just get together, we can get fit. We need to get this back together. So Coach said he set a date, and he went and talked to everybody and said, y'all ready to go? I'm going. Everybody else stayed in bed. Coach got up in the snow, in the cold, and from that day on, history began. That's his new life in track and field began, because Coach Bowden, once he starts something, it just grows. Excuse me, yeah, I want to mention a little bit about Coach's accomplishments. As a runner himself, after he was a coach at Bowden-Florida, he began to run more seriously. Over the age of 40, he ran a 2:45 marathon. He participated in the Mercedes Mile with the top masters runners in the world and ran a 4:32 mile. This is just an example of how he led by example, you know, with his athletes. And one thing about Coach is that he's go with all things go. In other words, if he set his mind to something, it's go. And he's no with all things no. If he's decided something should go into his body, it's not going to go there. And if he's decided that it shouldn't go into his athletes' bodies, he's going to encourage them to say the same things. So without further ado, I want to introduce again who I think is the greatest coach of all time. Not just for his coaching, not just for his running, but because of his consistency. He's been consistent every day that I've known him, up till now. So I introduce to you, David Bowden.
Aloha. Aloha. You know, I guess I've been gifted with secret treasures from my grandparents that came here from James Keenan. And one thing that, along with my parents, Dorothy and Robert Bowden, embedded in me, a work ethic, which I embodied in my spirit and soul and transcended into my athletes. And it's just something about doing the right thing and treat people right is the right thing to do. And that's what I stood on, and I still stand on that point. After coaching and teaching for over 40 years, I met my wife. She's unable to be here today. We own a modeling talent agency on the Big Island of Hawaii, and she had a photo shoot, but she's here in spirit. But having said that, I retired from the system, and I tell people even today, I'm a public servant. I've been a public servant all my life. Billy Reed, Coach Billy Reed, who was my high school baseball coach, and he's a part of the Hall of Fame establishment here as well. A few years ago, he was inducted. He planted a seed a long time ago, and I pretty much took it and ran with it. As an asthmatic as a kid, it was difficult. You know, you just can't stop the finish line. There is no finish line. I always said it. There is no finish line. If you're all about living and loving life, there is no finish line. And after moving to Hawaii 6 years ago, I'm a firm believer that there's something about mermaids, dolphins, and paradise that make you want to just continue to give. And that's what I've been doing on the Big Island at this point in time. Working with kids any way I possibly can, you know, to, if nothing else, make that light come on. As I pan around the room, there's so many people in this crowd here that were so instrumental in what I did or we did and accomplished at Boyd-Anderson High School. I reflect on the teachers, the administrators, and the student body about how we tried to, if nothing else, develop solid citizens. And that was the key. To put people out into the world that's going to do good things. And I'm a firm believer, too, that good people help good people do good things. And always embedded in my mind was the 6 Ps. Previous planning, prevent piss-poor performance. So that previous planning is so very important. And what Michael Lavelle, who, I can't say enough about this young man, and I just have to share a couple of things. When Michael came to me, Michael was no more than, what, 5'7", I guess, you know? But his heart, and I have to say that, his heart was bigger than anything that you can imagine. Michael never did complain. He just did the work. So consequently, being as blessed as he was able to understand what I was trying to get across to him. He pretty much visualized it. He accomplished it. And then he transcended it into the energy that he had in his spirit to win those 5 state championships. And I admire every one of you coaches here who are giving of yourself, you know, to our young adults. I was employed by a tennis pro on the Big Island. He had some little tiny tots that, from talking with me, I gave him the vision that footwork is so very important. And about, I guess about 10 months ago, he asked me if I would come down and work with his kids. There is one young lady, her name is Sayo Yamamoto. Sayo came to me, as Mike did. She was about 5'6", Japanese young lady. Never complained, we did the workout. The day of the tennis championship, the coach called and says, "Coach, you need to come watch Sayo in the finals." So I go down, Sayo was taking care of business. And one thing I heard from the crowd was all about her footwork. So coaches, I'm saying this, and Sayo, she went on, she was valedictorian at Ely High School on the Big Island this year. She's at University of Hawaii in Honolulu as we speak. But never complained, just taking care of the business, following instructions, you know. and things will begin to happen. They will begin to happen. So, coaches, as you go back to your athletes, if you can just impart that a little bit in their head, you know, just keep them working. Track and field is tough. It's a tough sport. And it takes a lot. It takes a resolve. It takes a resolve. That first step out of the door, going to practice, after school, it's tough on young adults, even today. I know back when I was coaching, I coached at BA 28 years. You know, and one thing I always would tell the athletes, that first step, when your last period class is over, that first step you take, coming to practice, is the best step you can ever take. So what they did, they came to practice, and they listened, and they learned. And I was just passing down what I learned through the process of running 20 marathons. And as Mike alluded to, the Mercedes Mile on Fifth Avenue in New York, it's very prestigious. And this was done over 40. But that was then, this is now. As I look around, I see Rob Cook there. Rob Cook, stand up a minute, Rob.
Coach?
Rob was in our program at Bowden-Anderson back in the early 80s. And steadfastness, and I was surprised to see him here today, but I'm so glad he's here. Thanks for coming, Rob.
My honor, my honor.
Say hello to the film. Okay. And I see my cousin, Bobby and Freddie Bowden. Would you mind standing for a minute, Bobby and Freddie? Okay. And Michael Spence. Where's Michael? Is Michael here? Okay, Michael Spence is here. Michael was in our program at Bowden-Anderson and did an excellent job. Your family's here too, right, Michael? Okay, they're over there. You know, as you see these people that I'm calling out, and I don't think there's anyone else here that was in the program, but, oh, Terry Brown. What am I missing? Terry Brown. Well, man, will you please stand, Terry?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Terry Brown was a part of our program as a 400-meter sprinter back in the day. And, a resolve. Right now, Terry is, he's working high profile in Broward County with the prosecution
Yes, sir.
office. Yeah, so, you know, and when I say solid citizen, say for instance, Michael Spence, he's, I can't quite divulge what Michael is doing because it's top secret, I think it is. Am I right, Mike? All right. And Michael Lavelle, who came up and introduced me, Mike is a computer software guy with Nokia in Atlanta, you know. So you just reflect on the lives that you have did a little bit of part, you know. You had a little part to play in it, you know, and to see them being productive individuals, you know. It just do your heart good to see that and understand it, you know. So without any further ado, in Hawaii, the thank you word is mahalo. Mahalo for having me here. Thanks very much for inducting me in. And this will, as I tell people, I'm here to represent my immediate family and my extended family. Thanks very much.
Once again, Dave Bowden. Well done. That's our first inductee into the Florida Track and Field Hall of Fame. And our next award recipient is well known to most of you. It's about the segregated.